Appreciate it. And good morning, folks. We are live on our other channels, which is fantastic. Great morning. Great to see you all again. I'm just putting live our other stuff on our Instagram now as well. So that is live as we speak. And our other Instagram accounts are all live now. Yes, they are. Yes, we're live on our other channels, which is fantastic. So good morning, folks. Fantastic morning out there. Sun's out again. Isn't it fantastic to be alive when you have the sun like that? Absolutely fantastic. Sorry, I'm drinking my morning coffee. So I want to talk to you about something this morning. Something that we talked about yesterday. One of the big things that people came back and asked me about, and there's a big question: how embarrassed do you get when you're dyslexic as an adult in the workplace? And there's two stories to tell. One is the famous story, and everyone may know about it, is of Richard Branson. When Richard Branson was starting Virgin Airlines, and we had a very powerful board of directors, and at one stage during one of the initial board meetings, one of the board members took Richard Branson out of the room and asked him a very simple question. He said, "You don't mind me asking you, do you know the difference between net profit and gross profit?" And Richard Branson said no, he didn't. And it was because of his dyslexia. But here's the big thing. He could say no, he didn't, because he was Richard Branson. He had started many billion businesses and was worth serious amount of money. So he could say, no, I didn't. Right? And he was comfortable in saying, no, I didn't, because he's comfortable with it himself. The challenge for you as an adult when you join the workforce without getting help, with your dyslexia, the challenge is coming up against phrases and coming up against situations where you can't really ask anyone for help. Why? Well, because it's not your business. It's as simple as that. It's not your business. And because it's not your business, you'll feel lost. Like many times if you started a new company or started a new job and they started to talk, maybe brought up a phrase, a three-letter acronym. I remember when we joined Indigo, we bought Indigo. We bought the company before it went bust. And one of the first meetings, sitting in there, the lead person who had bought the business, Shane, was listening to the techies talking about something. Now when we bought Indigo, it was an internet service provider, so it was a technical company. But because he was so secure in himself, he says to techies, hold on, stop. I haven't got a clue about what you're talking about. Now, other people in the room, including myself, hadn't got a clue what we're talking about. But we were too embarrassed to say, we don't know what you're talking about. What does VPN mean? What is an ISDN? We didn't know what these three-letter acronyms were. But he had the confidence within himself, maybe because of his age as well, and because he was wealthy in his own right. He had the confidence to say, stop. Explain that to me in children's English. I don't know what you're talking about. So he had the confidence to do that. The challenge with you, and we've all been there when we've joined a new company, you've got a new job, and at the first meeting, someone brings out this three-letter acronym. The ABC, the DDF, the AAB, the CCC, the CND. And you're sitting there in the meeting and you hear nothing more on that meeting except trying to figure out what the hell does that mean? What the hell are they talking about? And if you have a canteen or over the cup of coffee later on, or at the water cooler or wherever with the staff talk, or on your way down to the shop for your breakfast, you'll say to someone, tell me, I always get confused here. What does the last letter of the DDD mean? Or whatever the acronym is. Because you're hoping, because most people will say the full lot. So you hear the full word or phrase. Most people who are telling you what it is will say, "You mean the virtual private network? The N stands for network. Or the VIP, the very important person, the P stands for person." Most people who you ask will give you the whole string to tell you the last bit. So now you're going, wow, great. Oh, I know what it means. You'll go back, do a Google, do an AI checkup to see exactly what they were talking about and what the whole thing meant. Now, can you imagine you have a bit of confidence because you're in the workplace? You don't have much if you're in a new company, you're only learning. And even most people, when they hit their 30s, 40s, and 50s, still won't open their mouth a meeting, still won't express their own opinion, and still feel they have to go with the flow and not come out with real creative suggestions. Now, can you imagine, and you probably can, being in school and being lost with your dyslexia, not understanding when it comes to algebra, because maybe you're dyslexic and dyscalculia, what the teacher's talking about, because you've missed the fundamentals of it. You've missed the foundations of the maths because you couldn't keep up. You've missed class, or you don't understand what they're talking about. It's the same in a meeting in business. If you don't know what the three-letter acronym means, then you won't know or follow the whole gist of the whole conversation. You just won't. Because it's not your business. You don't feel you have the power to ask the question. What does that mean? Many times in meetings now, when people say stuff, I will say to them, I don't understand this. I've been doing this for probably the last 10 years. Or what does that mean? What does that stand for? And you can see them look at you. Sometimes just a hint of, what's this idiot talking about? Is he stupid? Why does he not know? Well, here's the trick. The person who's shouting out this three-letter acronym, they did not know about it either until they heard it and knew what it meant. So at some stage, they hadn't got a clue either what it meant. And more than likely, at some stage, they had to go and look it up to see fully what the whole thing meant. So, because Richard Branson was Richard Branson, he could say to that person who brought him out from that board meeting and say, yes, I don't understand the difference between net and gross profit because it was his business, but it's not yours. And I always tell the story. I always remember many years ago, we launched a dyslexia company in the UK, and we had a telephone call-in service, and I was helping launch this service. I always remember two things I tell people. One is a busman who was just retired ringing in. And he was 60 odd, 65, he just retired from the buses, from the London buses. And one of the things he said was, he only realized then in life that he was dyslexic. And he's wondering now, would his life have taken a different path if he had got the support and the help that he needed when he was younger? Now, he said, he loved working on the buses, and he may have still worked on the buses if he had known that his writing and his reading challenges were dyslexia. But he would have had the option maybe to do other stuff with life. And that's his regret, that he didn't have the choice to do something different. He didn't have the options. And that's what happens with children in school. If you don't find them a program, like our own program from the Paragraph Challenge or any program. I remember we've been doing ours for 20 years. If you don't find them a program to help them with their dyslexia, to open up and use that gift, you're narrowing the options they have of what they can do in life, in their view. In reality, they can do anything. But if their confidence is down, if they feel they can't do an awful lot because maybe they read slower than someone else, or their handwriting is terrible, or their spelling is terrible, or their maths is terrible. if they feel that because of that and those challenges, they are limited in what they can do, they will be limited. The reality is they're not limited. I didn't find out till I was 35 that was dyslexic. The time before that, it didn't limit me in any shape or form because I am who I am. I got my program from working on the car ferries and realizing I had a gift. I didn't call it dyslexia. I called it common sense. I just knew I was good at maths and other stuff. I called it common sense. But that was my program in my day when I was young. That was my program. And so I was lucky because I went to work on the car ferries. It didn't limit my options and what I could do with life. It made things slower. There's other things I probably would have have done, like gone to college younger, but I didn't. So the challenge you have now with your own family is: are you going to limit what they can do? Are you going to make them believe there's a limit to what they can do without getting the necessary help and support? And as I said, whether it's through the paragraphchallenge.com or through somebody else, if you don't get them that support, well, then you are by default limiting what they can do in life because you're allowing them to go through life believing there's a limit to what they can do because they feel the limit is there because of the bad handwriting, because of the spelling, because of the maths. And other people say to me, well, do you get 1 or 2 hours support a week in school free? And my answer to that is, yippee! 1 or 2 hours a week to change their life for good. Some of us have a very narrow way of thinking about the future. If you think that's helping to a huge extent, fantastic. And if it is helping to a huge extent, fantastic. In my experience, it doesn't. And that's my experience. My experience, you have to invest in your family to help them do better. Same way you would invest in a house to get a bigger house, or you invest in a car to get a better car. It's gas. We all invest in certain things like getting our nails done once a week. No, I don't. Look, I don't get my nails done. But people will invest once a week. They get their nails done. Maybe spend 60 euros or 60 sterling. They will invest in stuff like that. They will invest in getting their hair blow dried once a week. They will invest in getting a haircut once a month, a new suit, a new shirt, and so they should, to make themselves look well and feel well. But equally, you need to invest in education to make your family feel and do well. And that's what it's all about. So, because it's not your business, and it was Richard Branson's business, he had the power to say to that director, I don't know the difference between net and gross profit. And he had the power to sit there and for the other person to explain it to him, what the difference was, and to take on that explanation. And this is a story that he said has told himself in an interview. This isn't some made up story. If you look up the interview with Richard Branson, he tells a story himself. When we bought Indigo, the Shay who was leading the buy-in, he was the boss. It was his business. So he could ask and say to people, I don't understand. But how many times are you going to sit in a company and not understand what they're saying? And many times you're going to limit your chances of promotion by not having had that program done for yourself. And are you going to allow, and your legacy be, that your children will be doing the same thing in the same position that you are now because of the lack of help that you got, that you are now not passing that help, giving them the opportunity to find that program, to find that help, to help them do better. That's all I have to say to you today, folks. And I'm going to finish my coffee. I'm going to enjoy the weather. I have a few books to deliver. And don't forget, we are giving away 1 million copies of The Umbrella Girls free. I say this every day. Free. 1 million copies free. And all you do to get your free copy is go on to paragraphchallenge.com. If you want your free copy, go on to paragraphchallenges.com. It's as simple as that. Take care. Have a great day.